Hi, welcome to another mailbag episode of the Popular Podcast. My name's Philip, and I'll be answering and commenting on the various things you've written in about. Okay, let's open the mailbag. The mailbag has been opened. Here's the first question. This question comes from Sarah W. She asks, how did you feel about the use of Danny Crane's song On the Horizon Over the Edge at the end of episode 4 of Flagged? I wondered if anyone would bring this up because I completely forgot to talk about it last episode. Please accept my heartfelt apology. Let's talk about it now. For starters, I think we're all getting a little retro fatigue. Well, I'll speak for myself. I am, especially for this era of music, which is used to a varying degree of cleverness in almost all forms of entertainment these days. But I thought it really worked well here. That scene pulls off an interesting juxtaposition of sound and visuals, but I don't think they overstuff the frame or our ears. It's such a cool culmination of the series up to this point to have that crisp silhouette of Ricardo holding what is the tallest stack of pillows I think I've ever seen, and then see that stunning deluge of sparklers igniting in a crescent pattern over his head. I think the symbolism was pretty on the nose, so we don't need to belabor it, but I still thought it was really well done, and fan reactions seemed to be pretty unanimously pumped by it. It's hard to imagine that scene with another song. It just sounds so triumphant. And sure, it oozes its fair share of cheese, but I guess there's just a little corner of my hopelessly white soul that responds to it. It's such a simple riff, too, and it hits my reverb sweet spot, as does the general neon atmosphere of the whole track. I don't know about anyone else, but it triggered me to go back and listen to that whole Boy in Motion record, which I hadn't heard in a few years. It still holds up. This one comes from L-Dog. I think it's a he, maybe a she. Sorry, L-Dog, I guess it's not really important. L-Dog writes, during your talk on The Company We Kept last episode, I kept waiting for you to talk about Les Markham's performance, and you just barely brushed past it. I thought his portrayal of Rich Adkins, though not a flashy role, was one of the best parts of the film. Yeah, I did totally gloss over that, but it was unintentional. I agree with you. Sometimes we take these low-key performances for granted, but they can really shade in a lot of detail in thoughtful and subtle ways, and Markham's totally doing that here. The last thing I saw him in was, if you don't count that episode of RT's a couple of seasons ago, was when he was in Forgotten Pond, where he was a super hothead and totally electric, bouncing off the walls and practically spitting on the lens. It's almost the opposite of what he's doing here as Rich. And L-Dog's email got me thinking about something, which is, you know that thing when you see someone act in something and they're great, and then they pop up prominently in a completely different vehicle and they're great in that too? Not only that, but they're playing someone so different, and you almost can't believe it's the same person. I then always feel a sort of internal embarrassment when really that surprise that I'm processing is just remembering that these people are actors, and that's kind of what they do. Anyway, yes, L-Dog, so great, very strong silent, but also shows you those cracks in his confidence. I think that's also a testament to Jim Clayton's direction for letting you in on those moments, too. It's nice to occasionally be reminded of what a really great actor can do, especially at this supporting level where the performer isn't marquee hopping or above the title, or at least not yet. And it's nice to see someone like that exist as an actor where they're not beholden to a quote-unquote type, and their natural state is just going out on a limb or trying something new with each role they take on. I think a bigger name would have decided to play it safe here, because why? I don't know, they're scared of seeming more talented? Anyway, I guess I won't go feeling too sorry for professional actors who are lucky enough to be known for their work and not for their adjacency to a scandal. I guess that's the sad little bar to clear right now. Before we go to our next piece of mail, I'd like to consider some of the mysteries of the mind. Why do some words seem like a different number of letters than they really are? For example, the word away seems like it has more than 4 letters. It seems like it should have 5. I guess if you split the W into 2 separate single U's, it would be 5 letters. Here's another one. The name Philip, my name, has a confusing number of letters. Don't you think it only has 5 letters? It actually has 6. And some people spell Philip with 2 L's. Then it's a 7-letter name. I think it's confusing because of all the small vertical letters that are packed into the center of the name. Alright, Away and Philip are my 2 examples. What are some words that you think should be a different number of letters? You might be thinking, who cares? And to that I would say, that's interesting because to me the word who seems like it should only have 3 letters, which it does, and the word cares seems like 5. But I guess that everyone perceives the letter count of words differently. And that's what makes it a mystery of the mind. Wait, stop, I have another mystery of the mind. Why do some words and phrases sound inappropriate when they're not meant to? Something about the term hand fruit doesn't sound right to me. Okay, let the theme roll, Friedrich, thank you. Next letter. Lester U has a Q. He says, or rather asks, you recently said you were going to watch all of Miller Brown's films before you saw the new Risen Arcs installment. Assuming you did and you're not a bald-faced liar, did you have a least favorite out of the bunch? Thanks for that glass-half-empty question, Lester. I might be bald-faced, but I wasn't lying to you. You know, I know this will be an unpopular opinion, but I think one of Brown's first films, Solid, was actually my least favorite of the bunch. But I'm not flat out saying it's bad or it didn't have plenty of merits that I appreciated. I won't talk long on this, but just to reduce it to the overall feeling I had during and after, I think I felt isolated by the film. I know it wanted to take me on a ride, a mystery tour of sorts, but I think my little ride car had a rusty wheel, so I just ended up going in a small, sad circle in the parking lot. Now, granted, this movie is over a decade old, and it was made on a scrappy independent budget by a lot of enthusiastic, hungry, underexperienced folks, so I was trying to contextualize my viewing and contextualize that time period as much as I could. To be sure, there was a defined mood, and it had an interesting way of setting up what I thought were rules and then snapping those rules like little brittle twigs. But like I said before, it didn't hold me in that constantly off-kilter stance it seemed to be aiming for. It felt like it was holding me at arm's length. And I really did want to just fall into the story and forget I was falling until my body smacked that pavement, but it just didn't happen. I will say that, as any love letter to a genre like Solid is, it's fun to see someone experiment with a form that they clearly feel a deep appreciation for, and it's really cool to watch, knowing in retrospect that this is really only the beginning for Miller Brown. Okay, the mailbag has been sealed. It's now time for another household tip. Well, this week's tip is a wet one because it's all about water. Faucets, to be more specific. Kitchen sink faucets, to be even more specific. Now, our kitchen sink faucet has 2 different modes of releasing water, and there's a little toggle switch near the spout that switches between the 2 modes. One mode is like a spray that squirts water in an array of thin jets. The other mode is your classic general rush of water straight down like a water tube or a stick of water. I don't know the terminology. Now, we usually use it on the stick mode, but sometimes if we're rinsing off dishes or the bottom of the sink, we'll move it to spray mode. I try to remember to always turn it to stick mode when I turn the water off, because if I turn the kitchen sink faucet on and it's in spray mode, it makes a loud hissing sound and it startles me and I don't like it. Conversely, the stick mode sound is just a steady, thick whooshing sound that I expect when I turn the water on. It reminds me of a stern librarian hushing delinquent children who don't respect the fact that other people appreciate the quiet and solitude of the library. So here's the tip. If you have a kitchen sink faucet with a toggle, make sure to turn the spray mode off when you're done at the kitchen sink so you don't startle yourself next time you turn on the kitchen sink faucet. Okay, that's it for another mailbag episode of the Pop Filler Podcast. Thanks for listening, and remember, you'll be fine.